All right, we are officially on air, and as always, looking forward to connecting, share my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter. And looks like gold is in the headlines, but then again, is it what is it really meant to indicate a revaluation led by the West, or is this more so a disruption from what the East was already doing in reference to taking advantage of an arbitrage situation? So that's what we're going to talk about, and a lot of other things. But for those who are plugged in, appreciate you. Thank you for blessing me with your presence as always. For those who might be new, you never know, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. And feel free to subscribe to get an alternative perspective on what the mainstream media will not tell you. And so definitely I'm going to try to share my 2 cents on this as I unpack this and dive deeper into this whole gold revaluation slash gold disruption based upon the tariffs put upon Switzerland, which impacts the refineries and everything else. But when I first saw it, something just didn't smell right for me. Me more of a skeptic. I never take things at face value. I always like to dig deeper and try to question the narrative on top of the narratives. And so today I'm going to put together about 4 or 5 tabs of things that caught my attention that really should have you, I guess, suspicious as well. So we're going to do that. But as always, before I move forward, I want to get into some good news, get your spiritually charged up this morning, look at some headlines, look at the market activity, and then we'll jump into the narrative and try to make sense of everything and filter through it and get to the bottom of it. So let's do that. Let me make sure everything is going smooth on my end here. And then I will take you on a journey this morning into just another way of looking at things. So we're going to make the most of our time this morning. Okay, so let me get it on the screen here, and then we're going to jump right into it. So, spiritual gifts is the title of today's devotion. And as always, my goal is to put together my studies in a quick and simple format to encourage you, to edify you, and hopefully, motivate you to take on the day and give it your best for the kingdom's sake. Okay, so this is called spiritual gifts. It says, in the kingdom of God, no citizen is giftless. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 12:7, quote, a spiritual gift is given to each of us so we can help each other. And that's from the New Living Translation. Then he goes on to say here, that means your gift isn't your ego, it's for someone else's breakthrough. Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, quote, you are the light of the world. And then a light doesn't shine for itself. It shines for those in the dark. In the Old Testament, the Spirit came upon specific people for the specific moments. But in the New Covenant, the King has poured his Spirit into all his citizens. It says, your gift is the King's investment in you, meant to expand his influence on this earth. Don't hide it. Don't downplay it. Activate it. Put it to use. It says the kingdom advances when every citizen or every member of the body of Christ uses what the King gave them. And the closing prayer is, King Jesus, thank you for your gifts you've placed in me. Help me recognize them so I can bring light, healing, and truth to others to glorify our Father in heaven. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. All right. Hopefully that was of encouragement to somebody out there. Definitely feel free to drop an amen in the chat, in the comment section, or wherever you're watching from. And we're going to go right along. Keep it moving. All right, so let's just look at current market activity. As always, I like to look at the price of gold and silver just to see where we're at this morning. It's Friday, and so therefore I'm noticing a lot of green out there. And so once again, that's a good way to end the weekend. But we got silver at 38. And then we have gold right now, which is the primary subject matter, got above 3,400. And of course, if you look out in the futures, it's at 3,500. And so a lot of people are saying that, is this the great revaluation? Is this, when gold is going to be re-implemented to the monetary system intentionally by the Western Hemisphere? And that's what I want to say. Pump your brakes, people. Pump your brakes. You can't execute a monetary restructuring, i.e. a reset, where the digitization of everything is a primary thing, and yet have gold as a part of the equation intentionally. So that's why I am very skeptical. But we're at 33.91 at this current moment. So that is just something that I believe it's definitely going to go higher, because fiat currencies are not performing the way that they would like for them to. And so just an indication of where things are heading. But let's jump into it. So I came across, especially yesterday, late in the evening, saw that tariffs on Switzerland impacting gold bars. But then again, one key word that jumped out to me when I read it was like, I'll show that, but it said there's levels to this, and I'm thinking like levels. Like, why would you need levels? It's either all or none. But when it's specifically targeted towards a particular type of gold in reference to weight, that's where I began to get a little bit suspicious, and that's where I'm going to take you down this rabbit hole so you can see what I see as well. So here we have. This was last night, 17 hours ago. It says U.S. imposes tariffs on 1 kilo gold bars. And something like 1 kilo gold bars. What nation, what country, what entity is known for this type of weight? And I'm like, man, that's what China prefers. China does business with kilos. And I'm like, okay, so is this like an oopsie, or was this intentional in reference to the orchestrating forces that are trying to curtail, slow down, and keep at bay the Eastern forces and their passion, love, and plans for gold? Well, let's just see. Okay, so let me get to more of this. I'm going to read this to you because this is just, when I read stories, I look for things that jump out and really get me to question what we're being told, because all these Western-led sources are designed to paint a picture that has you believing one thing when we all know on the other side of that there's another side of the equation. And so it says here, on Thursday, the United States has imposed tariffs on imports of 1 kilo gold bars in the Financial Times report on Thursday, citing a letter from the Customs Border Protection. Okay. And then it says here, the letter dated July 31st said 1 kilo and 100-ounce gold bars should be classified under a customs code subject to levels. And that was the word that really had me like, whoa, to levels. So according to what I'm reading within this short excerpt is that the gold in these tariffs from within this letter from the Customs Borders Protection, more than likely imposed and influenced by the Western Hemisphere, is designed to separate and to categorize levels. Levels meaning 1 kilo, 100-ounce gold bars. Okay, why is that important? I believe. And once again, it's just me trying to put all this together to help it make sense in a way that differs from other people. So you have the two tiers, the two levels. 1 kilo, 100 ounces. The Comex, the Crimex, the Western Hemisphere driven markets, bullion banks, they deal in the 100-ounce gold bars. And so everything that takes place on this side of the world happens in 100-ounce gold bars. So everything that's in the vault, everything that's supposed to be sitting there fully allocated towards all the people with the contracts and all that stuff like that is 100 ounces. But then again, you go out to the Eastern Hemisphere, everything that flows through Switzerland and then heads back east in reference to the Shanghai Futures Exchange, which is the Eastern Hemisphere way of trying to reboot the gold market. Everything that goes that way is preferred in kilo bars. So all the West has been flowing from west to east. It goes from the Western Hemisphere, from Europe to U.S. All the gold has been stolen and from all parts of the world during all these fake wars has been filtered through Switzerland, refined, recast, and sent out east to China, Shanghai, the Futures Exchange, in kilo bars. So that's the levels, and they're targeting the levels. The goal, I believe, is more about causing a ruckus in Switzerland by imposing tariffs. So let me just share with you what I'm referring to. And so me not even being well versed in the levels to this game, let me bring my screen here. Give me 1 second here. Where is my other article here? Okay, I don't know what I did with it, but I'll just keep moving. So one of the things that really stood out is last week when Trump announced tariffs on Switzerland at whatever amount there was. I'm thinking like, Switzerland, why would anybody outside of what I'm aware of look to target Switzerland as one of those countries that's not participating, that Trump's trying to strike a deal with to make it more fair and balanced in trade and stuff like that? Switzerland's a small country in the midst of nowhere that is the anchor, the bedrock of the monetary system in a sense. Like all the powers that be and the forces that be somehow, some way are centered in Switzerland or thereabout. And Switzerland just it's been a gold mecca for centuries. And the fact that now they were targeted by Trump, I'm thinking like, oh, that's silly, because we were told mainstream headlines. And let me see if I can find something. The mainstream headlines was the primary focus was Switzerland, because they're known for watches, will be more expensive. Switzerland watches X. Let me see here. That's when I saw this. I'm thinking like, okay, who outside of watch collectors and things like that, who actually buys Swiss watch pieces like that? Even though majority of the watches that are of greater quality come from that region. Let me see here. And so when I saw that, it's just stuff that made me wonder. But yeah, I think this kind of information makes it somewhat clear as to the whole initial is just a part of the charades. So here we got a seismic 39% tariff on Switzerland is rocking the watch world, and even pre-owned Rolexes could see price hikes. And this is what happened August 2nd last week. And I'm thinking like, okay, like, wow, big deal. Nobody really needs to buy watches like that. So that's not really going to impact us here in the Western Hemisphere. But then again, a week later now, he takes it even further by literally imposing tariffs on gold and then categorizing it to levels and primarily focusing on 1 kilo, which happens to be the exact same weight that our enemies, allies, or whoever we want to call China, the weight that they prefer. And so that right there, my friends, is what people should question. And so a lot of people say, hey, what about the revaluation, Mike? It looks like, gold is going to be revalued and Trump's going to bring it back and they're going to, revalue the dollar and this and that. And I'm like, in a world where, things lined up and we could really count on individuals, parties to really operate in truth, justice, and righteousness, I would say yes. But a part of me, which would never allow me to jump on that train, is because everybody that I've seen, I haven't watched one piece of content in relation to the revaluation, but every single person, I would assume the narrative is very beneficial for them. Trump, gold, revaluation, dollar, strength, America great. See that sequential line of thought. And a majority of those people, I can't back this up, but there are people who are more gold enthusiasts / involved in the gold business somehow, some way, to where it makes it easier for them to say that, to share that, because it's what the people want to hear. People want to hear, oh man, I'm saying he's disrupting things. The bullion banks, they're going to have to come clean. And so I'm not going to ruin anybody's day by saying that can't happen, but just look at the bigger picture. Look at where this country's come from, what it's gone through, what the controlling forces, i.e. the central banks and Wall Street and all that, what they've done to this world, i.e. centered around this. I don't think they'll ever want this to be associated with gold again. And the revaluation part of things will not be to pay off the United States debt or to do anything beneficial for the people. But one thing I could see happening when it comes to gold is not to touch this, but it will be to use the increased prices of gold and to use it to borrow against sell, to sell or something of that nature, to buy Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is what Congress has unilaterally become a bipartisanship type agreement on accumulating, not gold, not auditing Fort Knox, not re-implementing gold back into the population's monetary psyche again. And that's why I would say don't bet on a revaluation intentionally from the West. However, Eastern revaluation to set things straight, to expose the corruption and criminality from the Comex cartel with these bullion banks and the papers futures game, can be something that could revalue prices, but it's going to be done from the Eastern Hemisphere, aka the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Okay, so I'm giving you all this because I'm letting you know that this tariff is not just like, oh, this is like just a good idea. This is intentional, and it has everything to do with this right here. Listen to, look at this. Look what's been taking place underneath our very noses. So here we have record gold pours into Shanghai as traders exploit the futures gap. And so this is a recent article, and there is no such thing as coincidence, in my opinion. Everything is strategic and intentional. Trump just didn't all of a sudden last week decide to impact Switzerland with tariffs out the blue. Sure, there's always room for improvement on trade balances, sure. But the next week, he tariffs gold and then says there's levels to it. They say it's levels to it. And in particular, targeting 1 kilo bars, which happens to be directly related to the Shanghai Futures Exchange. No coincidence, intentional. So what's going on here? This is just a summary, but I'll read it to you. It says, gold inflows into the Shanghai Futures Exchange warehouses have hit a record high, driven by traders exploiting the gap between high-priced futures and cheaper spot gold. Okay, so right now gold is at 33, 34, whatever, on the spot set by the Comex, the Crimex, Western Hemisphere bankers. That price is well lower than what the rest of the world would like to acknowledge the actual USD price as. And so because of that manipulation, gold has been flowing from the west to the east in droves to where the point it's become a very favorable opportunity of arbitrage for those that are trading out in the Eastern Hemisphere. Because basically it's cheaper to get the physical now and then sell it in the other parts of the world because the futures price is somewhat favorable as well. And so I believe, and this is where, I'm not too well versed in how all this works, but just putting all this together, this increased price on kilo bars drives up the price of gold, therefore cutting into the opportunity of taking arbitrage, i.e. buying low, selling high, type of opportunities that Asia has been enjoying. And so I could see this being a part of how this targeted level tariff on 1 kilo gold bars in particular is the new situation here. And so just to give you more, it says with futures trading at a premium amid strong speculative demand, banks and traders are delivering physical gold to the exchange to profit from the arbitrage. And so once again, the traders are making bank because the spot price deliberately withheld by the Comex and all that future price manipulation is becoming too great of a business out in the Eastern Hemisphere for, I guess, the West to ignore, the bullion banks to ignore. And I'd imagine it has a lot to do with the lack of available, freely tradable gold sitting in vaults somewhere. And so it's becoming harder, I believe, for the Western Hemisphere with these paper futures to continue to suppress the price because the physical has proven to be king because the East is benefiting off the opportunities of getting it all as much as they can on the cheap. And the opportunity of making that spread is the difference maker. Okay, so with all that being said, let me just give you some more. And so I was just trying to better understand a lot of how this operates, but I just asked some simple questions on Perplexity to get an understanding of what I'm talking about here. And I asked, what size gold bars does the Shanghai Futures Exchange in China require? And then it says here, the Shanghai Futures Exchange requires gold bars for physical delivery on its gold futures contracts to be in the form of 1,000 1 kilo gold ingots. So each contract represents 1 kilogram of gold, and the gold ingots must be produced by a supplier or refiner certified by the LBMA and recognized by the exchange. It says here, for the related but separate gold exchange generally used for spot trading, the Shanghai Good Delivery Standard accepts a wider range of bar sizes as well, including 1 kilo, 3 kilo, 12.5, and smaller bars. And so here you have the requirements for physical gold that sits in the vaults in the Shanghai Futures Exchange, 99.995 pure gold. And it must be certified and approved by accredited refiners. And so here we have an article. Let me grab this article here. It says, Trump's tariffs, did the Swiss gold refiners fuel the crisis? It says, many were baffled when Donald Trump slapped a 39% tariff on imports from Switzerland. The Swiss aren't known for flooding the U.S. with cheap goods, but their outsized role in gold refining is distorting trade data. So here we have Switzerland being the hub where gold flows to, through, for recasting, for everything, and then sent out east. This article here hints at the fact that the gold refiners has perhaps been a part of the reason why they decided to slap Trump. Trump decided to slap tariffs on gold, and in particular, the levels referencing the kilos and the impact on the refiners. So just to give you a little bit of something here, something to think about here, because clearly the industry is bigger than what the average person knows. But then again, these tariffs aren't just because, as it says here, Switzerland is flooding America with cheap goods, and the trade imbalances need to be settled because everything you look at in your house says made in Switzerland. Come on now. It says U.S. President Donald Trump's argument is straightforward. He believes trade partners of the United States benefit from broad access to U.S. markets while others restricting access to their own, creating persistent trade imbalances. So that argument that we were sold, the U.S. needs to be involved more in helping right the wrongs done by previous administrations, opening up their markets so we can interact in their markets, and also not flooding us with cheap goods. That's not the case here. So it says here, Trump balked at the Alpine nation's $48 billion trade deficit, which he said shows Swiss firms were taking advantage of the U.S. For that and the country's apparent unwillingness to address the imbalances, he put a much higher tariff on Swiss imports than the European Union. So once again, to my knowledge, there's not much Swiss goods coming to this country of this magnitude to warrant the need for them to target Switzerland the way that they have. And so that lets you know it's much bigger than actual tariffs itself. It is the activity, I believe, with the gold market impacting the bit and benefiting China. This is about somehow, some way slowing things down so China doesn't continue to accumulate all that gold, as it said from the previous article, in record numbers. And so it says here, I can go on and on and on, but you get my drift here. You get my drift. The narrative and what we're being sold doesn't add up. So what am I trying to say here? The idea of this tariff on the 1 kilo bar, to me, doesn't prove anything that the West is trying to help gold bugs and bring sound money back into the equation. I believe this is a way for the bullion banks here to have less pressure on them for delivery, because now the 1 kilo bars cost more because of the additional tariffs. So ultimately, that arbitrage that the East was taking advantage of, they're eating into that spread. So premiums are more now. Therefore, it cuts off a little bit of the potential trading activity, aka arbitrage opportunity, that the Shanghai Futures traders were taking advantage of. So ultimately, it's designed, I believe, to slow things down. You can't stop a freight train moving full steam ahead, but you can find ways to try to disrupt the euphoria in that particular sector, and that is the gold demand was not stopping. And so here's the thing. What does this mean? In the future, futures price obviously show that gold is going to be more expensive. I think about $3,500 now for December deliveries. All that's saying is the spot price now will go higher. And at the end of the day, who does that benefit? It benefits the Asian markets, because they are the ones that have been accumulating so much gold and making gold a part of their monetary psyche still, and possible plans for that BRICS gold-backed currency or whatever it is that they may be working on. Gold is a part of the equation because it is the great equalizer. It is the revealer of truth in a world of monetary corruption. And so while the East gets gold, the West is trying to deceive the masses with a Bitcoin strategic reserve and all that other stuff. They're just trying to put wrinkles and put some kinks in the plans, I believe. And this is what this whole Switzerland situation is about. So once again, can't prove it, but if you just look at all this stuff I put together, you gotta ask yourself a question. Why break the tariffs down to tiers? That happens to be the type of weight that the Shanghai Futures Exchange uses, and not the 100-ounce gold bars that the Comex and everybody else has recognized as the ideal weight for vault storage, as well as delivery and things like that. So these are things that you just got to begin wondering and questioning. But anyway, this is kind of the subject matter I want to touch on today. It's going to be shorter than normal, but you guys get the drift. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know where I'm wrong. Feel free to add to it. If we got any real techie people who know the futures and the contracts and stuff like that, drop a comment. Let me know. Leave some feedback so I can further educate myself as I continue to learn and rethink everything that we've been sold. Anyway, be blessed, be safe. If you want resources, check the description down below. Shalom.